hosting me at Detroit's National Night Out last evening, as well as for their leadership in the city and their work on dealing with this issue of restoring the bonds of trust between law enforcement and the communities that we're sworn to serve and protect. This issue, as has been noted, has really never been more urgent and has not been more urgently felt, I would say. The tragic events of just this past month have captured all of our attention, but they've also offered a sobering reminder of how much remains to be done before every American, whether they wear the badge or depend upon it for their protection, enjoys the safety and the security and the respect that they deserve. And in the wake of the incidents that we've experienced so recently that are still so fresh in all of our minds, it can indeed be easy to lose sight of the way forward, and it can also be easy to feel as if there's nothing that we can do. Because after all, we have been having this conversation for some time now. And while those feelings are understandable, we cannot give in to them. Because progress is hard, but it can be had. It has been had in many other cities, and for those cities that are looking for ways forward, we do have not only examples to offer, but there are ways to come together and do the hard work and have the conversations that will advance this issue. And the Department of Justice is committed to advancing progress in this important area. I am here in Detroit to launch a series of justice forums. Earlier this morning, Barb and I convened the first in a series of gatherings that we're holding around the nation as a sign of that commitment. And the purpose of these forums is to bring together local stakeholders. Local stakeholders because the issues that we face are in the communities, and we feel that the solutions are also in the communities. So the goal is to bring people together to critically examine police community issues and to open up new channels for dialogue, new channels for exchanges of ideas, but more importantly, these are working meetings. We want people to commit to specific solutions that communities can pursue with the ongoing support of the Justice Department. And I was tremendously encouraged and impressed by this morning's gathering, by the passion of the people there, by the goodwill, the spirit of openness that defined this meeting, and I look forward to continuing these discussions in different regions in the months to come. Now, of course, the Justice Department's work here in Detroit is designed to support the efforts that are already underway, thanks to the leadership of Mayor Duggan and Chief Craig. And during my visit here, I've had a chance to get a first-hand look at their initiatives. As I mentioned last night, I was able to go to the 6 and 8 Precincts Joint National Night Out festivities, where it's a great opportunity for the community and law enforcement to come together in relaxation, in community, in fellowship, enjoy each other, get to know each other, and that's another important way of advancing these goals. But also today, after the Justice Forum, I was able to attend another meeting here in the area, a meeting of an organization called Bridges, between the U.S. Attorney's Office, local law enforcement leaders, and representatives of Detroit's vibrant Arab and Muslim American community. Bridges is also a model of how local authorities can proactively connect with the families and the neighborhoods that we all serve. And these are just a few examples of the kind of inspiring programs that I've seen in towns and cities across this country during my tenure as Attorney General. I've also seen some other outstanding examples. I've seen police officers serving as tutors and mentors in the classroom in Cincinnati, Ohio, learning how to de-escalate tense situations in Phoenix, Arizona. But I've also seen community involvement. I've seen high school students helping to shape law enforcement policy as members of the Police Chiefs Youth Advisory Council in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And time and again, I've seen Americans, citizens, neighbors of all beliefs, of all backgrounds, come together around the recognition that ultimately we all want the same thing. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be understood. And more importantly, everyone wants to be safe. And we all want to live together in harmony, in trust, and in cooperation. That life of safety and dignity is the promise of this country. It's the goal that we seek for all of our children, every single one of them. And I'm confident that we can continue to make that dream a reality for more people in the days and weeks to come. So let me again thank the people of Detroit for welcoming me here, but let me also thank them for working on these issues over the years. There's some outstanding models here that have been begun by the U.S. Attorney's Office and by the community here that's very involved in these issues, along with local law enforcement. And we look forward to lifting up this work, but also spreading this work to other communities. People who are looking for ways, looking for solutions to come together. This has been a very painful time in our country. And out of this pain, out of this grief, can come progress. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll see if you have any questions.
Madam Attorney General, I'm Paula Tupman from WDIV. It's the NBC
Paula?
affiliate. Thank you for joining us. Right after you closed the doors for your forum this morning, my photographer and I stumbled over a group of young men of color playing a pickup game of basketball. And we talked to them about your visit. And what we really wanted to know is what in those conversations that you had today, other than the photo ops and the conversations, is really going to translate on the ground level in their neighborhood where they're playing basketball. What are you hearing that's going to go from conversation to policy that's going to affect change for them right now?
You know, I think that it's not just for the young men playing basketball today, but for all the young men playing ball across the country or out for the summer, looking for summer jobs, you know, looking for the next thing that they're going to do with their life. So it's not just for the young men here, but it's for all young people. And one of the things that was very heartening in the morning meeting was the discussion about young people. You know, as I said before, we've been having this conversation for a long time, and I have focused on cities that have had a very challenged relationship between law enforcement and the community, and they've worked very, very hard to improve that. In every single one of those cities, the involvement of young people was key. This morning we heard from a young college student who spoke specifically about that issue and talked about the need for law enforcement to proactively engage with young people. You know, there are many times when people want to have a good relationship, but they don't really know law enforcement. They don't know how. Law enforcement has the structure. They've got the buildings. They've got the procedures and policies in place to start outreach programs. You know, we've seen successful, as I mentioned, youth advisory councils. High school students in Fayetteville, North Carolina, who meet with the police chief and police leaders. They look at police training. They undergo a part of it so they can understand a little bit of what it's like to be a police officer. But they also talk about how many of the things that law enforcement does that we think are just sort of obviously meant to protect people are perceived very, very differently. And law enforcement needs to hear that voice also. So we talked this morning about ways to set up those means of communication and specific programs that will get law enforcement out of the precinct, into the community, onto the basketball court with those young men.
Attorney General, with regard to the Muslim American community and Arab American community, there's been some concern in recent years over the issue of undercover informants or undercover FBI employees in counterterrorism cases. There was one case locally in Dearborn Heights involving a 22-year-old man who two FBI agents posed as sort of women as love interests, wanted to marry him, and I know you can't talk on specific cases, but is there anything you can say in general about the use by the DOJ of undercover informants in these counterterrorism investigations, the current concern that there may be entrapment cases, and they're actually creating terrorism cases. But on the other hand, I do realize that informants are a part of law enforcement going back decades. So can you talk a little bit about that issue?
Well, I think the last point that you mentioned is an important one, that the use of undercover officers is a technique that goes back decades. But we are certainly cognizant of issues of concern that people have, but they don't necessarily understand the protocols for how we set up undercover operations and make